In boxing, there's a special kind of tension when an unbeaten prospect meets a seasoned veteran. One man walks in without a scratch on his record, convinced his rise is unstoppable. The other's been through the wars, knows the taste of defeat, and believes that experience is the sharpest weapon in the ring. That's exactly what we've got in Orlando for most valuable prospects for a team. Puerto Rico's Jan Paul Rivera, 12-0 with 6 knockouts, taking on Miami's Daniel Bailey, 15-2 with 8 stoppages. It's youth versus experience, speed versus power, and 2 fighters on a collision course for one of the most telling nights of their careers. Rivera wants to prove he's the real deal. Not just another name on the rankings list at WBA number 12 and WBO 15, but a legitimate world title threat. Bailey wants to derail the hype, jump the rankings, and remind everyone that toughness forged in the fire can melt even the brightest rising star. So, who wins when slick skill meets relentless pressure? Let's break it all down. In one corner stands Jan Paul Rivera, Puerto Rico's unbeaten hope in the featherweight division. 12 fights, 12 wins, 6 knockouts. A perfect record that reads like a promise. No blemishes, no brutal lessons learned the hard way. At least not yet. Every time Rivera stepped into the ring, he's left with his hand raised, and the buzz around him just a little louder. He's riding a wave that's already carried him into the WBA's number 12 and WBO's number 15 ranking spots. And with each victory, the spotlight grows brighter. Rivera's story is one Puerto Rican fight fans know by heart. A young, sharp boxer who moves like the greats before him, representing an island that's produced some of the sport's most skillful featherweights. Every jab, every combination is part of a bigger narrative. The next chapter in a legacy that stretches from the gyms of San Juan to the World Championship stage. For now, his rise has been flawless. The question is, how long can perfection last when the competition gets rougher, harder, and less forgiving? In the other corner waits Daniel Bailey, a man who's been on the climb, slipped and fought his way back up again. 15 wins, 2 losses, 8 knockouts. He's logged more rounds, taken more punches, and left more sweat on the gym floor. Bailey carries the quiet confidence of a fighter who knows exactly what it's like to be tested and still answer the bell. He's not arriving under the banner of undefeated glory. He's walking in with the memory of setbacks and the knowledge of what it takes to rebuild momentum from the ground up. Bailey is the kind of fighter who wears his experience like armor. He's been hit, he's been hurt, and he's been counted out, only to find his way back into the conversation. That's what makes him dangerous. He knows how to survive, he knows how to adapt, and he knows that one good night can change everything. This is the age-old question boxing never gets tired of asking. Which matters more, untouched momentum or proven resilience? Will the rising star keep his record spotless, or will the veteran use his scars as weapons and hand the young contender his first real lesson in the fight game? Punch stats don't tell the whole truth, but they do help set the scene. On paper, Daniel Bailey edges the power game with a 53% knockout ratio, just above Jan Paul Rivera's 50%. It's not a huge gap, but how they earn those stoppages couldn't be more different. And that's where the fight gets intriguing. Bailey is a pressure fighter to his core. He doesn't circle the ring waiting for the perfect opening, he creates it. Every round is like stacking snow on a mountainside, building toward the avalanche. His knockouts don't usually come from a single lights-out punch. They come from wear and tear, from slowly cornering you in a ring that feels like it's shrinking by the second. One thudding body shot is all it takes to take a piece of your movement away. And once you're not moving as fast, the heavier punches upstairs start to land. Against Bailey, every exchange is a deposit toward your own downfall. Rivera's knockouts, on the other hand, are surgeon's work. His power doesn't come from brute force. It comes from timing and precision. He's the kind of fighter who punishes every bad habit, every lazy guard, every half second of hesitation. His punches arrive in crisp, fluid bursts that make opponents guess, and often guess wrong. You adjust to his jab, the right hand snaps through. You start to watch for the right, and the left hook finds its way around your guard. Rivera doesn't chase the knockout. It shows up naturally when the pieces of his offense fit perfectly into place. So, when these two step into the ring, the question becomes one of style warfare. Can Bailey's physicality, constant pressure, and thudding bodywork break through Rivera's technical guard and slow his feet? Or will Rivera's speed, accuracy, and smart punch selection keep Bailey a step behind, chasing shadows all night? For Rivera, the stakes are crystal clear. At number 12 in the WBA and number 15 in the WBO, a win here keeps him firmly on the ladder toward a world title shot. Every victory is another piece of proof that he belongs in the top tier of the division. A loss, however, would be devastating, not just because it ruins the perfect record, but because it stalls the momentum at the very point it's supposed to peak. For Bailey, the prize is different, but just as valuable. A win over an undefeated ranked opponent will launch him into contention almost overnight. This is the kind of fight that can erase two earlier losses from memory and replace them with the headline, "Bailey derails the hype train." Boxing careers aren't just built on talent, they're built on moments. This is one of those moments. Rivera is just 24 years old and only turned pro in 2022. In boxing years, he's still fresh. Legs full of bounce, reflexes sharp, and a body that hasn't yet been through the kind of punishing wars that leave a mark. Youth brings certain advantages you can't fake: quicker reaction times, faster recovery between rounds, and the ability to throw in volume without feeling it the same way an older fighter might. Rivera fights like a man who's confident his gas tank will be there when he needs it. And so far, it always has. Bailey, at 29 years old, is 5 years older, but those extra years have been spent gathering the kind of wisdom you can't buy. Turning pro in 2020, he's fought more rounds, faced more varied styles, been forced to make adjustments in the middle of fights when plan A wasn't working. He's taken losses, rebuilt, and learned to manage the emotional highs and lows that come with the sport. Bailey knows how to conserve energy, when to press, when to wait, and how to win ugly if that's what the night calls for. It's the classic sporting question that's played out in boxing rings for over a century. Does youthful energy and hunger overwhelm veteran patience? Or does the calm, measured hand of experience beat the excitement of raw talent? The answer won't just depend on who fights better. It will depend on whose strengths hold up when the fight gets tough, the lungs burn, and the noise in the arena starts to fade into the sound of your own breathing. On paper, the dimensions are close. Both men fight orthodox. Both have equal reach, but Bailey is 3 inches taller, and in a fight where reach is even, height can still help with leverage, jab angles, and the ability to punch down, especially in close exchanges. Rivera's style is built on distance control. He uses movement to set traps, circling just outside of range until you step in and give him the angle he wants. He's not a runner, he's a matador, letting the bull charge and then turning it. Bailey's style is built on pressure. He's not reckless, but he wants to shorten the distance. He'll step into the mid-range behind the jab, work the body, and force you to either trade or retreat. The more he gets you on the ropes, the more he can work without having to chase. The central battle is simple. Rivera wants space, Bailey wants collisions. When you talk about Jan Paul Rivera's style, you've got to start with his jab, because that's where everything begins for him. Now, a lot of fighters use the jab to measure distance, to find their range. Not Rivera. His jab is more than a ruler. It's a scoring weapon. He snaps it out there to disrupt your rhythm, to occupy your guard, and to make you think about defending instead of attacking. And it's not just aimed at the head. One of his smartest tricks is to jab the body. It's quick, sharp, and makes you drop your hands just enough for him to come back upstairs later in the round with something heavier. That little dip in your guard, that's all he needs to turn a simple jab into a setup for a right hand or a hook. Then there's the footwork, the second pillar of what makes Rivera who he is in the ring. He doesn't waste movement. He's not just bouncing around to look busy. Every step has a purpose. You'll see him take that subtle half step back so your punch falls just short. And before you even realize you've missed, he's already stepped in with a crisp 3-punch combination. It's the kind of movement that makes you feel like you're always reacting, never initiating. Defensively, Rivera's all about control from range. He likes to stay in that sweet spot where he can see everything coming and catch shots on his gloves. He's not the type to slip way inside unless he absolutely has to. That style works beautifully when his legs are fresh and he can keep that distance all night. But here's the thing. If Bailey can slow down those legs with body work, the whole defensive system starts to weaken. Rivera's guard is solid, but when you're forced to block instead of move, the crack starts to show. So what does Rivera need to do to win this fight? 1. Establish the jab early. Make Bailey work just to get close and make him pay every time he tries. 2. Circle away from Bailey's power hand. Don't let him trap you on the ropes where the exchanges favor him. 3. Target the body on exits. Every time you disengage, stick something in his ribs. Make him feel it later in the fight. If Rivera sticks to those principles, he forces Bailey into a frustrating night, where the older, more physical fighter is constantly chasing but never quite catching him. And in a fight like this, frustration is just as dangerous as fatigue. When you talk about Daniel Bailey, the first thing you have to mention is his pressure game, because that's the foundation of everything he does in the ring. Bailey isn't out there trying to win a dance contest. He's trying to win a fight. That means getting close enough to make you uncomfortable. His jab isn't the flick and score type. It's heavier, more deliberate, aimed right at your chest or shoulders. He uses it like a paintbrush, and more like a crowbar, prying open the distance between you and your own comfort zone. Once he's in, that's where he thrives. From mid-range to close quarters, Bailey becomes a different animal. He's constantly looking to work the body, hooks, uppercuts, to get shots to the ribs, anything to make your legs feel heavier with each passing round. He knows that once your movement slows, his job gets easier. His power starts to feel even bigger. Every body shot he lands is like putting another brick in the wall between you and the final bell. Bailey's physicality is another key element of his style. He's taller than Rivera by 3 inches, and he knows how to use that frame in the clinch. He'll lean on you, bump you with his shoulders, keep his head under your chin. Small, exhausting things that don't always make the highlight reel, but pay off over time. Every second you spend holding his weight is a second you're not breathing as easily. Defensively, Bailey isn't the slick, evasive type. He's more about smothering your offense. He'll catch shots on his glove, roll with punches, and immediately fire back to keep you from building momentum. He's willing to take one to land one, especially if the trade puts him in a better position for the next exchange. What are Bailey's keys to success? 1. Close the distance behind the jab. Don't follow Rivera. Cut the ring off and force him towards the ropes. 2. Invest in body shots early. Make Rivera's legs heavy and take away his biggest defensive weapon, his movement. 3. Make it physical. Use the clinch, the lean, and every ounce of your size to wear Rivera down in the kind of fight he doesn't want. If Bailey sticks to his game plan, he turns the fight from a boxing match into a battle of attrition. And in that kind of fight, every minute favors the man who can keep pressing forward without blinking. Rivera's Puerto Rican roots run deep. The island has produced legends in the featherweight division, and Rivera is seen by many as the next in that line. Every time he steps in the ring, he's not just fighting for himself, he's carrying the weight of that tradition. Bailey represents Miami, a city with a growing fight scene and a reputation for grit. While Miami doesn't have the same historic boxing identity as Puerto Rico, fighters from the area are building their own legacy, and a win here would be a huge step for Bailey in putting his city on the boxing map. Headlining Most Valuable Prospects 14 isn't just another night, it's a spotlight. The cameras are rolling, the crowd is louder, and every mistake is magnified. For Rivera, it's a chance to prove he belongs under this kind of heat. For Bailey, it's a chance to steal the show and take the momentum for himself. This isn't the first time we've seen this kind of stylistic collision. Far from it. Boxing history is stacked with nights where a rising, skillful contender meets a seasoned, battle-tested veteran, and the results hinges on far more than the tail of the tape. Think back to Oscar De La Hoya versus Ike Cordy. The Golden Boy's youthful speed and crisp combinations against Cordy's iron jab, high guard, and big fight experience. That was a fight where both men had their moments, but it ultimately came down to who could control the critical rounds when fatigue, pressure, and the crowd's roar all collided. Or Miguel Cotto versus Joshua Clottey, about that showcased Puerto Rican precision against Ghanaian physicality. Cotto had the skill and timing, but Clottey brought unrelenting pressure and the strength to absorb and return fire. Every round was a negotiation between who would get to fight their fight. We've seen this dynamic play out at featherweight, in Prince Nassim Hamed versus Manuel Medina. Hamed entered as a flashy, unbeaten knockout artist. Medina, far more experienced, uses awkward rhythm and ring smarts to frustrate the younger fighter in stretches, testing his patience and forcing him to adapt. The lesson? In fights like this, talent alone isn't enough. You need the discipline to execute under pressure. Or take Juan Manuel Marquez versus Orlando Salido. Marquez was a technician, counterpuncher with the polished combinations, while Salido was the gritty battler who brought constant heat. Marquez's skill won out, but only after he weathered rounds of physical grinding pressure, proving that the ability to impose your style is just as much mental as it is physical. That's the beauty of these matchups. They boil down the sport to its purest form. It's not simply skill versus power or youth versus experience. It's about will versus will. Who dictates where the fight takes place? Who decides the pace? And who can stick to their identity when the other guy's doing everything possible to drag them into unfamiliar territory? In those moments, it's not just about what you can do. It's about whether you can do it when someone's trying to break you. When the bell rings in Orlando, it's not just Rivera's ranking or Bailey's experience on the line. It's a clash of philosophies, of identities, of entire careers worth of preparation. This is the moment where talk stops and execution takes over. Does the young technician keep climbing, adding another flawless chapter to his rise, showing the division that skill and discipline can freeze out pressure and power? Or does the veteran pressure fighter rip up the script, using grit, experience, and heavy hands to remind the sport that raw toughness can still tilt the balance against a polished prospect? It's the kind of fight where every round tells a different story. Rivera may look untouchable in the first 3, But can he keep the gears turning when Bailey starts cutting off the exits and digging to the body? Bailey might look like he's breaking through in the middle rounds, but can he deal with the sharp counters and footwork that could rob him of momentum in the final stretch? Whatever the outcome, one man will leave Orlando with momentum and a step closer to a world title shot. The other will be staring at the long, grinding road back, a road every fighter knows, but no one wants to travel. And that's why we watch. That's why nights like this matter, because it's not just about 2 records. It's about finding out which style, which mindset, and which fighter has what it takes when it counts the most. This is the Knockout Nest, where we break down the fights that matter, the moments that change careers, and the punches that keep us all coming back for more. If you're riding with Rivera, if you're backing Bailey, or if you just love the drama that only boxing can deliver, drop your prediction in the comments. Like, subscribe, and join us next time for more fight previews, breakdowns, and the stories that make this the greatest sport on earth.